Spend a little time moving around a Korean city, and you start to notice that the streets and stations themselves seem to be on your side, quietly engineered to make getting around faster, cooler, and less stressful. The intelligence is hidden in the infrastructure. Here are 15 ways Korean streets and stations are simply smarter than ours. First, the bus lanes that run down the middle of the road. In Korean cities, major roads often have dedicated bus lanes right in the center, separated from regular traffic, so buses sail straight past the gridlock instead of crawling along stuck behind cars. It quietly makes the bus genuinely fast and reliable, often faster than driving, which is exactly what persuades people to actually use it. By giving buses their own protected highway down the middle of the street, the city rewards public transport with real speed. While buses elsewhere wallow helplessly in the same jams as everyone else, Korea figured out that if you want people on the bus has to actually beat the traffic. Second, buses color-coded so you instantly know where they go. In Seoul and other cities, buses are painted by function: blue for long main routes, green for short local hops, red for fast trips to the suburbs, and yellow for tight downtown loops. A single glance at the color tells you what kind of journey a bus is built for, before you have even read a number. It quietly turns a confusing tangle of routes into something you can read intuitively. It is a small, brilliant piece of design that makes a sprawling bus network feel approachable to absolutely anyone. Third, the late-night owl buses for when the trains stop. When the subway shuts down in the small hours, Korean cities run special late-night buses along the busiest routes. So people heading home at 3 in the morning still have a cheap, safe way to get there. It quietly fills the lonely, expensive gap that opens up after midnight in most cities, when the only option left is a pricey taxi or a long wait. The routes are planned around where night owls actually travel, using real data on late-night demand. While so many cities effectively strand anyone out late, Korea figured out that a city does not truly stop at midnight, and made sure its transport does not entirely stop either. Fourth, public bikes parked on every corner. Korean cities run extensive public bike share systems, with docks scattered throughout the city where you can grab a bike with your phone, ride it where you need to go, and drop it at another dock for a small fee. It quietly solves the awkward last stretch of a journey, the bit that is too far to walk but too short to justify anything else. Cheap, healthy, and everywhere, the bikes knit neatly into the rest of the transport network. By making bikes available wherever people actually are, Korea turned cycling from a commitment requiring your own bike into something you can do on a whim, anytime the mood or the need strikes. Fifth, protected lanes that make cycling feel safe. Alongside the shared bikes, Korean cities have been steadily building proper bike lanes, many physically separated from car traffic along roads and especially the scenic riverside paths. It quietly addresses the single biggest thing that stops people cycling: the fear of riding alongside fast-moving cars with nothing but paint for protection. With safe, continuous routes, ordinary people, not just the brave, feel comfortable getting on a bike. By treating cycling as real transport deserving real space, rather than an afterthought squeezed onto the edge of the road, Korea quietly made it a genuine, pleasant option for getting around, instead of an extreme sport for the fearless few. Sixth, the shade canopies that appear over crosswalks in summer. Korean cities install large sunshades at intersections, stretched over the spots where people wait to cross, giving pedestrians a patch of cool shadow instead of baking on scorching summer asphalt. It quietly addresses a small but real daily misery, standing fully exposed under a brutal sun just to wait for a light to change. These simple shelters make a sweltering walk through the city noticeably more bearable. It is the kind of cheap, humane touch that reveals a city genuinely thinking about the comfort of the people on foot, treating a hot wait at a crossing as a problem worth solving rather than just an unavoidable part of summer. Seventh, the cooling mist that takes the edge off the heat. On top of the shade, many Korean streets and stations deploy fine cooling mist sprayers in summer, gentle arches and nozzles that release a light fog to drop the temperature of the air around waiting pedestrians by several degrees. It quietly turns a stifling corner into something refreshing, a small oasis on a punishing day, with mist fine enough to cool you without leaving you wet. It is a clever, low-cost way to make the public realm livable through brutal heat, and it shows a city actively fighting to keep its streets comfortable rather than leaving people to suffer the worst of summer on their own. Eighth, the traffic lights set into the ground to protect people glued to their phones. Korean cities have installed traffic signals embedded right into the pavement at crossings, strips of light that glow red or green on the ground itself. So even someone staring down at a screen sees the signal in their line of sight. It quietly tackles a genuinely modern danger, the distracted walker stepping into traffic without ever looking up. Rather than just scolding people for using their phones, the city met them where their eyes actually are. It is a strikingly practical response to how people really behave, accepting human distraction as a fact and engineering the street to keep them safe anyway. Ninth, crosswalks that notice you and adjust. Korea has rolled out smart crossings fitted with sensors that can detect people still in the road and extend the green signal so they are not stranded, along with countdowns, voice guidance, and warnings for approaching drivers. It quietly makes crossing the street safer for everyone, especially the elderly, children, and anyone who simply needs a little more time. Rather than running on a rigid, indifferent timer, the crossing pays attention and responds to the actual people using it. It treats a simple road crossing as something that should adapt to human beings, instead of forcing human beings to rush to keep up with an unyielding machine. 10th, tolls you pay without ever stopping. Korean expressways use an electronic tolling system that lets cars roll straight through dedicated lanes while small device and roadside sensors handle the payment automatically. No stopping, no fumbling for cash, no jamming up at a booth. It quietly erases one of the most pointless sources of highway congestion, the toll plaza, where everyone grinds to a halt. Traffic simply keeps flowing as the charge is settled in the background. While drivers elsewhere still queue to hand over money at a barrier, Korea figured out that a toll should be collected without ever interrupting the journey, keeping the whole road moving smoothly instead of bottlenecking it at every gate. 11th, express trains that skip ahead on the same line. On some Korean subway and metro lines, express services run on the very same tracks as the regular trains, but stop only at the major stations, letting long-distance riders leapfrog past a string of minor stops and reach the far end far faster. It quietly gives people a choice between the all-stops local and the speedy express, depending on how far they are going. Rather than forcing every rider to crawl through every single station, the line offers a fast track for longer journeys. It is a clever way to serve both the short local hop and the long cross-city haul, all on one set of rails. 12th, transfer centers that gather everything in one place. Korea builds integrated transfer hubs where subways, city buses, intercity coaches, and sometimes trains all meet under one coordinated roof with short, sheltered, clearly signed walks between them. It quietly removes the stress and confusion of changing between different modes of transport, the long treks, the guesswork, the dash through the rain between a station and a distant bus stop. Everything you need to continue your journey is gathered conveniently together. By designing the connections between transport modes as carefully as the modes themselves, Korea grasped that a journey is only ever as smooth as its most awkward transfer and quietly engineered those transfers to be painless. 13th, hailing and paying for a taxi from your phone. In Korea, app-based taxi services let you call a cab to your exact spot, watch it approach in real time, and pay automatically through the app with no cash and no awkward fumbling at the end of the ride. It quietly removes nearly all the old friction of taking a taxi, the standing on a corner with your arm out, the uncertainty of whether one will ever stop, the scramble for the fare. You simply tap, ride, and step out. The whole experience is calm, predictable, and trackable from start to finish, turning what used to be a small gamble into one of the most effortless ways to get across the city. 14th, parking towers that stack cars where there is no room. In Korea's dense cities, where flat parking lots are an unaffordable luxury, mechanical parking systems lift and stack cars in tight vertical towers, packing many vehicles into the footprint of just a few. You leave your car at the entrance, and the machine tucks it away and retrieves it for you. It quietly solves the brutal scarcity of parking space in a crowded city by building upward instead of sprawling outward, freeing the ground for the people and places that actually make a city worth living in. 15th, parking that bills you automatically by your plate. Many Korean parking facilities use cameras that read your license plate as you enter and leave, calculating your fee automatically and letting you pay by app or at a simple machine, with no paper ticket to take, lose, or feed into a slot. It quietly removes the entire fiddly ritual of grabbing a ticket on the way in and hunting for it on the way out. The system simply recognizes your car and handles the rest. While drivers elsewhere still wrestle with flimsy tickets and bulky barriers, Korea figured out that the car itself is all the identification a parking lot needs, and let the technology quietly take care of everything else. Step back, and the pattern across all 15 is unmistakable. None of it is flashy or futuristic for its own sake. It is just street after street, station after station, where someone clearly asked a simple question: how could this be a little faster, cooler, safer, or less annoying for the people actually using it? And then went ahead and built the answer. A shade over a crosswalk, a light in the pavement, a bus lane down the middle. Each is small on its own, but together they turn moving through a city from a daily battle into something that quietly works. That is what it really means for a city to be smart.